He's just joining us from Westminster in favour of leaving the EU. John, what would you say to Mr McDonnell about the way Labour handled this campaign?
Oh, well, Labour was somewhat out of touch. And I'm surprised, David, you're not calling it for a Leave victory, because every single result that's come through was predictable. In the coalfields, where there are no results out yet, I predict it's going to be 2-1 for Leave. In my constituency, turnout was up 10% on the general election. And if you look at, even in Scotland, Dundee, the Scottish heartland for the SNP, every party in the Scottish Parliament voting for Remain, 40% voted to Leave. Wales is going to vote a majority Leave. Northern Ireland's going to vote a majority for Leave. It leaves London, but if we take that Dagenham result, even in London, there's huge disparity. And Labour voters have decisively voted to leave the European Union.
Where have Labour got it wrong then? I mean, let's not go into speculating whether, you know, you're right about all those places, Northern Ireland, the rest of it, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But where has Labour gone wrong?
Well, Labour's gone wrong by not being in touch with its voters. I've been saying this for the last 10 years in relation to immigration and free movement of labour. I've been saying it in relation to what the offer is to working class people. It's not something new in this campaign. I'm not the only one, but it's a small number who've been saying it at the national level in Labour. I've said it for the last 10 years repeatedly. And what we're offering working class people is 0-hour contracts. What the country's offering, 0-hour contracts, agency work, insecurity, and people are sick to death of it. They've had enough. And that's why, in my area and elsewhere, Labour voters have voted in huge numbers to leave the European Union.
John McDonnell, do you think he's right in this critique of Labour?
I think John's right on a number of the policy issues, but on 0-hours contracts, we've already said we're going to scrap them altogether. In terms of insecurity at work, we've said we'll tackle the issue of the undermining of trade union rights in this country, and that means opposing the government's Trade Union Act. In addition to that, in terms of security, we want to have the workforce more involved in the planning of their company, represented on their company boards. So all of those issues that John has raised, we've actually got policies to deal with them. The issue for us now is how do we get those policies across? What's interesting is if you look at the shape of the vote tonight, is those areas that are not gaining in any way from the supposed recovery in the economy and have suffered economically over the last decade, that are voting for Leave. And I think that is, yes, it's a reflection of what they think about the European Union not assisting them, but I also think it's a reflection of a condemnation of the government's policies over the last 7 years when it comes to austerity. There's real grievances out there, which we think we've got the policies to address, and we need to get those across.
Theresa Villas, as a Brexiter, do you think he's right, that that's what you're winning, if you are winning, because of the failings of the Conservative government?
No, I think that the people who voted Leave did so with a real understanding of the issues. That at the moment, as a member of the European Union, we do not govern our own affairs. It doesn't matter who you vote for at a devolved or a general election. There are many things that you cannot change, including free movement and immigration laws, and that's not healthy for our democracy.
So it's a constitutional matter for people, not what John is saying. And John is saying that people feel that they've been left behind and that they've had they've static wages for a long time, uncertainty about their jobs and all the rest of it.
People feel a lack of control overall. They feel not represented by the political elite, as they describe it, but they don't feel represented in Europe either. So they feel a lack of control over those very bread and butter issues about whether they can get a decent job, decent wages, roof over their heads and decent education for their children.
I think that when we've been talking to hundreds of voters in the last couple of months around the country, for lots of people, it's been a whole mixture of things. But people have really thought about these issues. They have engaged in it. They have thought about the European Union. It's been about identity. And of course, that is a complex thing. So whenever we're going to hear politicians say all sorts of things over the coming days, voters have thought deeply about this. Many of them, you can't just dismiss it and say it's one thing here or it's one reason. There's a whole conglomeration of reasons.
All right.
Many of them are about the European Union. It can't be dismissed as something else.
We've got Liverpool in. Let's see the Liverpool